Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gavinsky's Tutorials. Today I'm taking a sponsored look. Thank you very much, Audiomodern. I really appreciate the support. A sponsored video look at Loopmix, Audiomodern's new app, which I've really been enjoying, and I've teased it only orally in a couple of little short musical demos that I did recently, but I didn't mention anything and didn't show the app. But if you heard me using beats in a couple of my recent videos, they came from this. And that alone is kind of high praise, because if you know me, you'll know I don't actually use beats that much in my music. But I want to make it very clear, by the way, from the get-go, that this is not just for beats. I mean, it will be extremely popular with beat makers. I mean, you could seriously put a bunch of samples in here and come up with a pretty killer sample pack in like half an hour. So I think it's going to be incredibly popular among that crowd. But you know, even for people who are into ambient and experimental stuff and that kind of thing, like myself, I think there's plenty of room for how to use this app. Although I do think there are one or two things that could be developed that would make it more suitable for that music. And I'll mention that in a second. So anyway, sponsored video, but as usual, I just give my frank opinion on things. So the too long don't read right here at the very beginning. I really like this app a lot. I've had a lot of fun with it. I think I'm going to be using it a lot, but just want to mention right away a couple of things that I think it needs. And I've talked to Audiomodern about this. Drag and drop support would be great. I would love to have the Files app just being able to slide over the app and just drag things directly in here. Don't know if that's doable in the AUV3, but even if it was just in the standalone, it would be very cool. Audiomodern are working on that, and that is highly likely, I would say 90% likely, 99% likely to be added. Another thing that I and other people want to see who are, iOS based would be multi-out. So the ability to have various tracks from one preset being played on different channels, and you could add FX chains to each separate track. That would be brilliant. Third thing that I'd like to see would be the ability to load it as an FX app instead of just as an audio app, so that you could perhaps record loops directly into it. And that was, I mean, the first time I tried to open this, I actually I tried to open it as an FX, because it seemed to me that that would be the most likely place to find it. But no, so I think that's something I'd love Audiomodern to consider. And then the last thing that I would mention is, I think attack and decay control for each segment would be absolutely killer, and it would make it more useful for doing melodic stuff, pad type things, drones, things like that. But there are workarounds for that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, let's just start by explaining to you what I'm going to cover in this video. So first, we're going to start off with just a little demonstration using something from the factory bank presets. As we play around with that, I'll explain a few key functions. Then we'll go through more systematically the different controls, and I'll show you things like how to get your own samples, loops, and so on into the app. And if you watch this video, you'll understand very well how to use the app with extremely minimal need, if any, to look at the manual. There might be one or two things that I don't cover that I will refer you to the manual for, or refer you to another YouTuber for. Okay, so let's get stuck in. So first, let's just play this really cool preset called MetaBeat 2. And we can see that ideally it's supposed to be played at 120 BPM. But I want to mention time stretching and pitch shifting algorithms in this, which are done by Cymatics, are like absolutely top quality. So you can really pitch things down and they can still sound absolutely fantastic. So particularly if you're someone like me that doesn't give a monkey's ass, basically, about like doing genre-based music, you know, you're going to have a lot of freedom over the BPMs that you use. If you're more genre-based, you know, let's say you're a drum and bass musician, there's a lot of good drum and bass patches in here. You're probably going to be playing them more up at 170 or whatever, but it all depends, right? You know, a lot of the real cool, like early 90s electronica stuff, you know, was taking drum and bass stuff and playing it at half speed and things like that. So, yeah. Anyway, let's have a little listen here. So, things up here we'll look at later. First, I want to concentrate on the real kind of fun part of the app. Not to say that these parts are not fun, but first place I would look if you're getting started with this app, you've got to understand sequencer, rearrange, reverse, density, volume, and pitch tabs. So let's look at the sequencer first. And we pay attention here to one thing first of all. Is it on mono or poly mode? So we can, you know, go in and manually add by clicking or remove by clicking. And because this is on mono, what that means basically is that, see, if I try to click here, this one will disappear. If I click here, this will disappear. We can see, let's call each of these a step. On every step, there's only one track that's going to be played at any given time. So this can be really good for more glitchy sounding stuff. Let's just hear what it comes up with. I'm going to first just put this to subtle. Let me press play again. Okay, so the mono is very good for glitchy type stuff. Let's say we go into poly. Now you see we can get a richer sound, and you'll also notice that I've locked this vocal track so that even when I randomize, it always stays. So that's very, very useful for getting a bit more of a sense of continuity, lock a couple of things. Right, so this mono and poly is a very important thing to understand there. There are other things too, but we'll come back to those later. Just briefly mention, this is randomize, this is reset. This, if this is turned on, and you can see that all of these all have these three buttons. If the red is turned on, it means that when we press this big randomize button, it will be able to randomize that. So the sequencer, rearrange, density, which is basically ratcheting, these things will be randomized when we press this. But volume, for example, will not be randomized. You can see that volume is staying at 90 all the time there. But if I press this, now we can see that volume is being randomized. Again, we can just change volume manually when we're in that tab, right? Now we also have undo and redo buttons up here. I'm actually just gonna, hang on. Okay, I'm just gonna go back to the original preset. Okay, so we have the sequence tab. That's really cool. Now, rearrange tab. Again, we can do things manually. So, okay, what we've got here basically is a waveform of a loop. You can see here we've got this kind of empty sort of area. Let's just solo this and let's just play it. Just play it here with this. I've got to turn on the keyboard icon for that. Okay, now let me take this and drag it here. And let's hear that again. Right, so you see what we're doing here? We're rearranging the loop. And again, we can, use random for that. Let me click back here. This will allow us to use the host transport or this button to play. This one will allow us to use either the in-app keyboard or an external keyboard using these notes at these octaves to do various things. We'll look at that in more detail later. Now, an important thing that we'll see in a lot of these is how many steps in any track can be randomized. You can see here I've set it up a lot. I just put it down to 1. And now only 1 step per tab will be randomized. A lot of those, of course, you will not hear unless the, let me put it to poly. Oh, and I forgot I had solo on as well. Okay, let's hear again the rearrange. Put this up a bit. Let's try with the sequencer on mono. Okay, so that's the rearrange tab. So we can see that a lot of these have this fixed or variable. So fixed, that's just choosing a fixed number of how many steps can be randomized. Variable will give us a minimum and maximum range. So that's what that does. So we can see also reverse has that. The sequencer, it doesn't have that. It has its own things. So the sequencer has the overall time, the length of each step. So at the moment, each of these 16 steps is a 16th note. If we wanted, we could make each one as long as a bar. If we look at the shift button for the sequencer, that we've got all pressed here, by the way. That's another important thing to pay attention to. It's just moving the sequence, which notes are played, that's going to move forwards or backwards. This is a global control, actually, so it doesn't make any difference with that, whether it's on or not, or on all or not. We talked about this already. Subtle, normal, and complex. Didn't really go into that in detail. Basically, if you look here, you can see when we're on subtle mode, every time I press randomize, there's always one track that does most of the heavy lifting, let's say. Here it's track 5, here's track 4, And then there's just a few other things coming in from other tracks. If we put it on normal, we can see there's still one dominant track, but there are more elements of other tracks coming in. For example, here 3 is dominant, but there is still a lot of pieces from number 5. And then if we go to complex, it's just sort of more all over the place, really. So yeah, that's those. And then this anchor. So let's just go back to subtle again for a second. So if we see here, here track 4 would be considered the anchor in this particular configuration. If this is set to random, then every time we randomize the sequencer, that anchor track will change. So for example, here it's track 1. But let's say we want it to be track 2. You can see now here, no matter how many times I randomize, track 2 is always the dominant one. So this can be really useful. You know, to keep things a bit more musical and not let things get too out of hand. So if you're playing live, you know, you're playing on the fly, this is likely to give you better results. And then you could just change it. You know, maybe every 4 bars or something. Or every 2. So very musical, very, very musical. Okay, so that's sequencer. And again, in each of these tabs, this is randomize, this resets, this determines whether or not this tab will be affected by the global sequence. Now, reverse. Okay, let's have a listen to reverse. So let's just make it a bit more extreme. Let me look at the sequencer and maybe just, you know, add in, make sure that more steps are being played so we can maybe hear the effect a little bit better. Here we can see which things are being reversed. You see I've raised the minimum to 3. So we're getting a lot more reversing. That's just everything reversed. Reset. Okay, there's reverse. Density is basically like a ratchet. Which again, we can randomize or set manually. Again, fixed or variable. And again, we could apply it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no track 6 here, or all. Pretty radical. Okay, let's reset. Volume, yeah, mostly with randomize, you're probably going to want volume off, but can be certainly nice to play with. And pitch is a fun one. Okay, we've just gone back to the original there. These forward and backwards buttons are not working for me for some reason. No idea why. So when we manually change the pitch, we can move up or down 12 semitones. One thing worth noticing is that this will not pay any attention to the scale. I think it would be quite nice actually if these things could also quantize to scale, but I don't know, maybe without it knowing what scale the actual thing is in, it wouldn't work. I don't have no idea. But basically, yeah, the scale thing will apply when we use the randomization function for pitch. So let's just let it randomize 3, and let's. I mean, no idea whether it'll sound good or not, but let's take say harmonic minor. So you see what I mean? That, you know, this could benefit from some kind of envelope control, attack and decay. But that's where little plugins like this come in quite handy. Transient Shaper by Loop-mangling. You know, we can reduce the attack. I'll let you hear this later on my drone thing that I did, and you'll see how useful that can be. Actually, let's go into that one right now. Let's look at the difference between the mono and poly. Add some reverb. Add this transient shaper. So you can really see that something like this can benefit with a slower attack. Also, it's really nice to have at least one of these anchored. And let's say we go to pitch. Whoa, okay, that pitch is absolutely crazy. That's pretty cool. Right, so just to give you an idea that, you know, this doesn't have to be all about beats. You can do weird stuff with it. Just use your imagination. Excuse me. So yeah, another thing about pitch is that we have these different modes: shift, formant, and shift and formant. Let's just take this solo this number 1. I anchored it. Hang on, let me unanchor that. So that's the shift mode. That's the formant mode. And that's both. Pretty cool. This just resets everything. So for experimental stuff, I think there's a lot to be said for the idea of actually just putting in the same loop exactly and, playing around with that one loop in the 6 different tracks and seeing what interesting stuff you can do. Sorry, this is still soloed. Let's enable pitch and volume to be randomized. Let's just say, let's anchor this. So a bit atonal there probably for some listeners' ears, but I like that kind of weird thing. All right, let's see what this is like. Oh, that's that one again, right. Hey, this still not letting me scroll, don't know why. Okay, let's try something melodic. Might slow it down a little bit. So let's talk about the lock button. So let's say I wanted to use the big randomize button. But there are some things that like some steps that I don't want to change. Like let's say, for example, I want to keep these like that. Well, you can see here when I randomize, also with just the sequencer randomizer, those are not changing. Same with the big randomize button. So that's what the lock button does. Now, the mixer, we have a master level, solo and mute for each one, volume level for each. That's simple enough. Coming over here, we have different randomization types. So this one is a bit more radical. This one is kind of softer, global randomization style. Again, whether it's global or not depends on whether these things are activated. And this one is just a temporary mode. So it only has effect while you're pressing it. So again, good for live performance. Let's just stick things down to subtle here. Another important thing to mention, by the way, when we're using the randomize stuff, not actually this one, but over here, this thing, what this does here is, okay, we can turn this on. What this means is that every time it plays through one loop here, it will randomize it. But the setting is different. You see, when I switch the sequencer here, it's not turned on, right? But it's turned on for all the effects. So basically, if I take any one of these effects and I set something up here, like let's say I get the effects to change every 2 loops. And then let's say the sequencer, I can turn that on and I can maybe get that to change, let's say every 4. Now let's listen to what that sounds like. Do you see the sequence just changed there? You'll also notice when it's playing that it shows you a kind of countdown. So we can see when the change is going to happen. So it's going to change when this one comes to an end, the sequence. Okay, let's change this out. Okay, this is a bit more my kind of thing. Okay, double tap to bring that in. Now, this is a cool function, this disintegrate function. This will basically take away notes, or not really notes, still it'll turn off steps in the sequencer over a period of time until you're left with no steps. Now it won't apply to any steps that are, any tracks that are locked. So just for the purposes of this, I'm going to unlock everything. And you can see we've got anything up to 16 there from as short as 1. So let's just make it 4 and press play. And what you'll see happening here is that, let me just add in a few more. Let me make it poly, maybe. Just bring in a few more steps. So over the next 4 run-throughs, all of these will gradually disappear. So it's a really good way to make a track fade out. It's sort of something like what something like MIDI gates by Art Kearns would do with MIDI, but it's like an audio version of that. It's brilliant. Right, and now everything's gone. Really great feature. So we also have export. We can export each audio track or the full loop. We can export each MIDI track or the full MIDI sequence. And here we can also change the root note. So I haven't actually experimented with that, but that is definitely very, very cool. Okay, let's go back to the modular things. That's not really my cup of tea. I'm going to bring this down to 90, even though it's supposed to be 100. This is nice. Just randomize this pitch on number 2. Turn off the solos. So again, to get good results with pitch, you're maybe going to have to really figure out what key something is in. Okay, now what else have we got to look at? Okay, here, this is important, right? So let's just, okay, click here, 1. You see this name here? 2, 3, right? It's different. So we can randomize each of these. So let's just see what that sounds like. Let me undo that pitch change. Actually, let me just load the whole patch again. Okay, now randomizing 2. And even though this is completely random, it still sounds pretty cool. Ah, there's no track there. Okay, so you can see that that could be something that you could have a lot of fun with. And again, in this place, you can go in and you can search. So if you know the name of the sample that you want to add, you can just add it in there. Okay, brilliant. We've got pitch change here. Offset. Now, hang on a second. Okay, so you can see there, it's just moving the loop back, basically, step by step or forward. Whoops. Not the best example. Sorry, I'm trying to change the pitch of the wrong thing here. So you can see this pitch is only changing the pitch of 2, not the pitch of 1. Great. Trim can trim. If a loop is more than 4 bars long, it'll trim it down to 4 bars. Here, now again, it depends. Have we got all selected, or track 1, track 2, track 3, whatever? Let me just go and choose another preset. Solo a couple of these. Let's take this track 6. Let's speed it up, double speed. Quarter speed. Now imagine playing this whole thing very slow. And we still got this lovely reverb on. again, some things are going to work out better than others. Oh, okay. Another important thing. Let's change this out again. Let's try one of these modular beat ones. Okay, so dragging this red line, we're changing the length of the loop. Now you could get some really extreme effects with that. We can get even more extreme if we turn off this magnet, which basically represents quantize. So this is quantizing it. Oh look, we can also drag it as well, yeah. So we can change the start point, the end point, and we can drag it along. But turn this off, it gets even more cool. Because then we can do this kind of thing. Haha. So you see what I mean? Do not dismiss this if you're someone who's only into weird stuff. Because this can do some brilliant stuff. Wow. I think we've gone through everything. Just maybe very quickly go over some key things again. So remember that you can clear tracks here. Remember that you've got your undo and redo, very useful for live performance. Do something, undo it, redo it again, etc. Remember that locking tracks can be very, very useful for randomizing while preventing things from getting too chaotic. What else do I like? I think this this keyboard here is really nice. It's also, at least on my big iPad, a nice enough size that I feel that I can use this without bothering using the AUM keyboard and, having to make the screen smaller. But like I say, there does seem to be a little bit of an issue with the hold. What else do I like? I really enjoy this playing around with the length of the loops, especially unquantized, but even quantized. I extremely appreciate the quality of the time stretching and pitch shifting. It's very, very good. Very good. I love the ability to change or randomize different tracks in a preset. I really like the momentary randomization ability. That's really good. I love the disintegration. I mean, it's such a well-designed app. The lock, that's something that I haven't really experimented with much, but again, I think that could be extremely useful musically. Yeah, fantastic app. Again, just to repeat my requests, which I mentioned at the beginning, for anybody who skipped through the introduction, what do I want to see and what do other iOS users want to see? Drag and drop, multi-out, ability to load as an FX app and record loops directly into it. And what was the other one? Some kind of envelope control, even just simple attack and decay. You know, something that will function like this transient shaper type of app does. But again, none of them are deal breakers whatsoever. By the way, I was using Medusa on this. I've kept really the ratio up a bit much there actually because I needed it for that drone because the drone was so quiet, but I forgot to bring it down. But anyway, I quite like it with that pretty heavy compressed sound, and this preset on Medusa, tri-band, kind of similar to triple band in Bark Filter, just makes everything sound really good. I do feel that some of these really benefited from having a bit of mild reverb on them. So again, it's one of the reasons why I'd really like to see multi-out. But great app, great fun app. I'm not going to go through and demo tons of these presets, but I think it's fair enough to just go through and maybe do one or two from each major section. Let me bring that BPM down. I could type that in, but I don't really want to get the keyboard out. Okay, so let's just hear a little bit of the kind of variety that it's got to offer. These forward and backwards things are working now. That's great. They were working earlier as well, don't know, just at some point. I was having a bit of difficulty with them. I love these Foley kits. Even just jumping from one kit to another can sound really good. Let's not worry about 10 BPM. Nice. I don't know, who wouldn't buy this for $10, 10 quid, 10 euros, whatever. playing those far too fast. Anyway. I also like how you can jump from one preset to another without any horrible glitches or anything like that. Not all developers manage to do that. I always really appreciate it. Okay, these ones do need to be played more around their original pitch.
You're hotter than hell. Making but gotta cool it down, miss back. Oh, you know, you're so many. Never too late to go back out. Yeah, you got me feeling feel right. And just don't down. You wanna.
Run out of battery any second here. Okay, folks, so I'll leave it there. I hope there's nothing that I've missed. I think I've covered everything, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Any questions, drop them in the comments. Either I'll answer them or hopefully someone from Audiomodern will be able to pop in and answer any that I can't. Really enjoying the app. Thanks again to Audiomodern for sponsoring the video. Do please give this a thumbs up, everyone, if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're into iOS music, or, I mean, increasingly there are more and more desktop devs making stuff for iOS as well. So I'm often covering those and almost always have giveaways with my videos. So even if you're a desktop user, you still might find it worth subscribing. Okay, everyone. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.